All right, so for my folks at home, we're going to do a quick review of the stuff that we covered yesterday. We're going to jump into some ecosystems today, some biomes. Hopefully we can cover two, end off the day with another review game, and have some good times as we go through. We know, Danica, that right now we are studying the terrestrial biomes, the land biomes, right? And when we were playing the game, you guys, the land and aquatic, you were pretty quick to answer those two questions as to which one was which is a good thing. Yesterday, we started off in the grasslands. What is the main plant life in either of the grasslands, Landon? Grass. We had two. We had the prairie and the savanna. Very different grasslands with very different animals, very different climates and weather as throughout the year. They both do have drier seasons where lightning strikes can start fires, but that's something we need to talk about. So let's start off with the prairie. We know in the prairie that we have pretty hot summers. 100 degrees is pretty hot, but they have equally as cold winters. It gets freezing cold and snows a lot in the Badlands especially, which would be a grassland area. About 20 to 35 inches. That's a lot of rain to help get the grasses to grow. Addie, not quite enough rain to support tons of trees like in a rainforest or a deciduous forest or the taiga. They need a little bit more rain because trees use a lot of rain. But we know that there's a lot of grasses in these areas. In order to live in the grassland, we said yesterday that, number one, you're probably going to be an herbivore. And if there's a ton of herbivores on the trail, we're probably going to have a bunch of carnivores in the area. And there needs to be adaptations for both. We said yesterday that being fast was definitely one adaptation. Having camouflage and for the prey living underground was something very important. We also learned that if there happens to be wildfires, that the grass has a very low growth point in both the savanna and in the prairie, and that the grasses are able to grow back, which is something that was very, very important. Skipping through some of that. We talked about things like prairie dogs and gophers, bison, antelope, coyotes that live in some of in the prairie grassland. They're not going to ask you some obscure animal that you've never heard of. When they give you a list of animals, it will be very obvious which biome they're asking you about. And so we talked about that yesterday. I'm not watching the videos again today. We watched those yesterday, moving through those. And so here's like the anchor chart notes. This is what we wrote about the grasslands yesterday, mostly about the prairie. Most important plant life is grass, fantastic soil. Grass is the main plant life there. Grass can grow back. Lots of herbivores. When you have lots of herbivores, you're going to bring in lots of carnivores as well. Moving into the savanna, we do see a little bit more trees here, which is kind of odd because they actually get less rain than the prairies. But we also learned that the acacia has very cactus-like adaptations where it stores water just under the bark, which is kind of good too. It's a lot warmer here. It doesn't get as cold, doesn't snow there. 68 to 86 degrees all year long. I enjoy the four seasons, not just hot seasons and then I guess a little bit cooler, but not really. They do have wet and dry seasons there, though. In the summer is when they get all their rain. In the dry season, the animals might have to migrate to somewhere else if it becomes drought-like and everything starts to dry up. We talked about that acacia tree. We watched the video with the giraffe yesterday. They're not going to ask you specific questions about the acacia tree or anything like that, but it is fun to know a little bit more about these things as we move along. And there's the video that we watched yesterday. Here are some of the animals that you might see there. Elephants, zebras, lions, giraffes, gazelles, lots of herbivores. Again, lots of herbivores means lots of carnivores are going to move into the area as well to kind of keep that carrying capacity under control so they don't eat too much grass and then cause an issue there. So that moves us today into the tundra, Now, Skylar, you didn't get to answer the question earlier this morning. You were not happy about that. I'll let you answer this one. What color do you think that I should use with the tundra if it is the coldest of all the biomes? I am going to use blue today. So, yes, we're going to go with blue. And I do think, Bryson, the first thing that I'm going to write is that the tundra is the coldest of all the biomes. That is a fact that might come up. It could say what's the coldest of all the biomes and then give you a list of biomes, and you should know it just from that. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here. All right, so again, not only is it the coldest, it is one of the driest. It is the second driest biome. And a lot of the times, Colt, they'll say which of these ecosystems is the driest. And you're thinking, oh, this is the desert, no problem. And you go into the answers and the desert is not there. And they're listing all, and you're like, oh my goodness, how am I supposed to know that? It's the tundra. It's not the grasslands. It's certainly not any forest, because forests have lots of trees and trees need a lot of water. Now, if it's between the desert and the tundra, now this year I could see them saying, out of the list of biomes, what 2 are the driest, and then it says choose 6, which is dumb. I don't understand that second line that's on there. But again, it is one of the driest. It is second to the desert. So again, jotting down the notes. I see people writing. Hopefully we're done by the time I've reviewed this, like the 3rd time for the folks at home. Long, cold winters, negative 50 degrees. Again, that's super cold, and very, very short summers. We do have those days because of the way the earth is tilted, where it stays daylight all 24 hours of the day, but it's not very intense like sunlight that you get at the rainforest because of where we are in latitude and longitude on the map, because that's extremely important. Again, the soil that's there, because it's so cold, even in the summer, it all doesn't thaw out. It stays permanently frozen. We have that stuff called permafrost. One of the reasons why there's not a lot of trees, as Skylar said, because the roots can't go that deep. Very low diversity of organisms. Low diversity means there's not a lot of organisms, but there are some there that have learned to adapt to the low amount of rain and the low amount of light and the low temperatures. Lichens, mosses, there'll be some very small, short bushes do grow there. There are some plants that have learned to grow there. Lichens are those things we might see. It looks like a moss, but it grows on the sides of trees and rocks. We know what moss looks like. And small shrubs are just teeny tiny little bushes. The plants that live here do adapt to the weather. They're very short. They kind of are grouped together to like fight against the rough winds that blow there. The growing season in the tundra is very short. It's only about 2 months, 60 days. That would be your short summer. The tundra plants do get energy from the sun, but think about it, if the sun is not that intense, they again have adapted to make their way through that cold temperature. Tundra animals. This is the first animal that I think of when I think of the tundra, is the polar bear. They have learned to adapt to the cold and the low amount of rain. Again, a lot of these animals, there's hibernation that goes on so that they can make it through the harsh winters. Lemmings, caribou, polar bears, Arctic hares are in the tundra. Lemmings, caribou, polar bears, and Arctic hare are some of the animals that we might find in the tundra, and I'm going to put that in our notes. Again, if you're living in an area where most of the year everything is white and covered in snow, you're going to need some kind of camouflage. You can't be this dark brown animal running around the snow. Polar bear is going to see you from a mile off and catch you, and vice versa. If the polar bear was dark colored, then the other animals would see it coming from a mile off. I've even seen some videos where polar bears will actually cover up their nose with snow and keep it kind of down low so that the other animals can't see it as it moves across, as it's being a predator. Lots of mosquitoes. You'll hear them in the video we watched today. Flies, moths, and something that is really cool to me, the Arctic bumblebee, which we will watch a video on here in just a few moments, which is unbelievably amazing. So lots of cool animals that have some very cool adaptations. I'll get your question in just a second, all right? The Arctic bumblebee. Now, Mr. Bowen, do I need to take notes on this Arctic bumblebee? No, it's just another animal that I think is unbelievably cool. Bumblebees are cold-blooded. What does it mean if you are cold-blooded? Your blood takes on the temperature of the area that you're in, right? That's why lizards and snakes and stuff don't do well in cold or super hot. Their body starts to take on that exact same temperature. Now, you would think if you lived in the Arctic and you were a cold-blooded animal that you would die, but bumblebees have very special adaptations. They have ways that they are able to keep themselves warm using their muscles, which we learned about in science. They also have learned how to get into flowers in a very specific way so that the sunlight is like intensified on them, almost like a magnifying glass to raise their body temperature. They are a lot fuzzier than any other bee that you might see as well, which is kind of cool about the Arctic bumblebee. We'll come back and watch this video after I end my video, and we'll stop right there. So here are our notes for right now on the tundra.